Okay, we shall continue our midweek studies in the Proverbs wisdom literature. And we are going to read and speak upon the information found in verse 3 and 4, I believe, of chapter 1. Our last session, which has been several weeks now, we've been having technical difficulties with our internet provider. Hopefully, the last technician that came here, which was the fourth technician, and the third modem upgrade or updated software or hardware or whatever you call it, hopefully that did the trick. So we shall certainly move forward with our session today and see what kind of insight the inspired information reveals, and what components of our thoughts open to practical application, illustration, and a great many actions that would benefit our faith in Christ. My name is Stefan Maye, and thatitsouls.com is my website. I labor alongside the East Coast Church of Christ over here on the East Coast of Canada, and you can certainly check out the .com. I encourage you to do that, eastcoastchurchofchrist.com. So in the Proverbs, pertaining to our last session that we had, a bit of a, let me see here if I can just put it up on the screen. There we go. There it is. All right, now we got the scriptures up there. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. To know wisdom and instruction. To discern the sayings of understanding. We took the time to look at the words and what they meant, and to function according to the context. And it was truly a enjoyable session, and we were capable of finding instruction therein, of course. And we encourage all of you who may not have tuned into that session to go check out the archived episode. So we move forward today with verse 3 and 4. 3 and 4. To receive instruction in wise behavior. And therein, of course, the title to our session, Wise Behavior. Wise behavior. That's what we seek to have and to practice. Wise behavior. Driven, of course, guided by wisdom. Wise behavior. So we shall look at these words and put them together in an educational format where we receive, of course, greater knowledge and hopefully the will to practice the greater knowledge in our life. It certainly will make us wise. It's designed that way. It's designed to have us make better decisions in life with our career or employment, perhaps, our finances, our relationships, friendships, family, neighbors, coworkers. It has us discern and have greater insight into the realm of right and wrong, right? Right. Okay. Of course, to its focus and primary objective, to have us faithful to Christ. Seek ye first. To have the insight void of eternal well-being is missing the mark greatly. And we don't want to miss the mark. We want to hit the bullseye, if you will. All right? So let me just here now open up another of our study tools so we can together look at the words and what they mean. Let's see here. Proverbs 1. We'll start with verse 3, and we'll go to Bible Hub. Bible Hub will give us the some insights there we look for. All right. Click to see. Yeah. For receiving instruction in prudent behavior, wise behavior, doing what is right and just and fair. All right, let me see here if we can find ourselves in the Hebrew. Let me see. All right, there we have the words. Now we can maybe go back to our screen view of it all. All right. Friends, please consider again always to subscribe, to follow, to like, to share, drop a comment. Interacting with the material helps others out there hop on board the algorithm wave and certainly have benefit to one's faith. It's good to have you. Truly, it is an encouraging comfort to have you, knowing that we are not alone here and isolated. We are together, seeking to study and learn these things that are inspired literature. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 3 here, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity. What does that mean? Well, to receive, of course, is self-explanatory, I believe. One must be the recipient of reception. It is a free-willed thought. You have independent accountability. You can make the decision from your thoughts, your thinking mind, to take or receive, more so accurately, the word receive, what is being given. There we go. What is being given, we receive. We can neglect and reject. We can say, no, thanks, it's just not for me. I prefer being a fool. I mean, most would not, of course, say that outwardly. Some would, no doubt. We live in the age of lunacy. You will find someone say, I'd much rather be a fool than someone who holds any kind of insight or wisdom. But in its general application, most individuals would say, yeah, I'd prefer being wise than a fool. So, yeah, I'd like to receive what you are extending my way. To receive what? Well, the instruction, of course. And instruction was an interesting word, so let's go find it. That was the wrong button. There we go. Let's go back here. The instruction, yeah, there we go. All right, what do we have here? Discipline. Yeah, see, there's the word discipline. Instruction, correction, chastisement, noun, masculine, musar. Remember, we took a look at that word in regards to the first session we had in Proverbs with the word instruction. It's most important for us to understand it well. Discipline, instruction, correction, chastisement. You're currently, let's say you are driving down the road and you begin to steer the wheel towards the ditch. Your co-pilot, if you will, your friend sitting on the passenger seat, he immediately takes the wheel from you and corrects it. He disciplines you by basically snapping you into it, maybe just a punch on the shoulder there, like, what are you doing, man? Stay on the road. No, you were going off there and into the ditch. Stay on the road. You're missing the mark if you're not on the road. Chastisement, reproof, so meaning, right? Definition, discipline, instruction, correction, chastisement, meaning, chastisement, reproof, warning, instruction, restraint. Word origin derived from the root yasar, which means to discipline or to instruct. And that is indeed important, to train up a child, to educate, or to discipline. The Hebrew word musar primarily refers to the concept of discipline or instruction, often in the context of moral or ethical teaching, right? What you are doing is morally wrong, and so you need instruction to go towards the path of what is right. The instruction of wisdom. Now we take a look again at that word. To be prudent, to act wisely, to prosper, to have success. We would be told to look at the ant, right? The ant prepares in its seasons, knowing what is coming. If it's the winter season or the summer season, many of these creepy crawlies, many of the animals out there in the animal kingdom, of course, they have the prudency, they have the insight in their instinct, if you will, not through free-willed conscience or anything, but through instinct. They were created, they were engineered with that intelligence to understand the seasons already and to know they must be prepared for the season. And that is wise indeed to observe and to apply in our lives in practical application. Prudency, to be prudent, to be wise, to prosper, to have success. And the model of the inspired information, of course, is a true and successful model, whether one believes in God or not. Some utilize the model, though godless and secular in worldview, to become successful. Many of our corrupt politicians or corrupt corporate powers, they utilize the wisdom of inspired language to their, of course, selfish ambition. And they become successful in this here existence. Now, sadly, at the cost of their eternal soul in torment, they exchange this wisdom, which is to be governed for eternal prosperity, and they change that in order to become successful monetarily, perhaps, or with influence or power. But it's wisdom that it holds will make one successful. Now, those of us who are submissive to our Master, to His Majesty's reign, with a pure and humble heart, sincere and honest and transparent, we utilize the wisdom, of course, to make us wiser than our enemies, to make the right kind of decisions in life, which ultimately are for the result of eternal peace and success for the greater good, of course, of His kingdom. We utilize it in priority to be pleasing to God and to follow Him faithfully. But the world can utilize the same wisdom for its own carnal or fleshly desires, ambitions, agenda. Sadly, many brethren do that. Many brethren who are well versed in the scriptures will utilize it for their own gain, if you will, sadly, at the cost of abusing or taking advantage of their fellow man. But that insight is certainly available to all, and some utilize it for the right reason, and some utilize it for the wrong reason. So, what do we have here? Sakal, to be prudent, to act wisely, to prosper, to have success. Again, it could be in anything and everything. It could be business, finances. It could be family and familial, social activities and relationships. It could be in military. It could be in self-defense and security. It certainly applies in all facets of human life and experience. And we are wise, and we would become more so educated if we tapped into it for the greater good of His kingdom. Meaning to be circumspect, intelligent. Oh, we need that word among each other once again, don't we? We have fallen prey to the language of lunatics and are no longer capable of discerning right from wrong. And so we call evil good and good evil. We slaughter our most vulnerable and innocent in historical numbers. We pervert with sexual deviancy our youth at the hands of pedophiles. We have created such a chaotic and disorderly culture that we no longer can identify the difference between male and female. We think ourselves lower than the insect. It's truly a tragedy how quickly we came to this point. And it's because we let go, we neglected and rejected, of course, the purpose of our existence and the inspired language of wisdom literature, how to make us intelligent. And of course, there is responsibility with intelligence. I don't have much of it, but I know this much about it. it holds responsibility. It demands responsibility. There are boundaries to freedom, liberty, and intelligence. Some utilize intelligence and gain intelligence, again, for the wrong reasons. And they fall prey to self-righteous hypocrisy, pride and control, and things of that sort. A primitive root, often translated as wise or prudent, this Greek term shares a similar emphasis on practical wisdom and understanding, something that has boots on the ground, practical application. Wisdom, meaning wisdom. This term is frequently used in the New Testament to describe both human and divine wisdom, right? Not only what we can gather from our walk on this earth, but what is given to us through divine sourcing, the scriptures. So that's kind of interesting. So we look at instruction, we look at wisdom, we look at instruction, we look at wisdom. We go back and see justice. Here's a new word. And to get once we together here are kind of just having a bit of a surface look at descriptive perspectives to the word itself, and then we'll kind of round it all up and put it together in its context. So tzedek, I don't know, I can't pronounce it. Tzedek. Yeah. Well, anyways, righteousness, justice, rightness. What is right? Opposite of what is wrong, of course. Righteousness is what is right. Justice is what is just. Noun, masculine. Righteousness, justice, rightness, the right, equity, prosperity. It's derived from the root tzadak, meaning to be just or to be righteous. The corresponding Greek and Hebrew entries often translated as righteousness in the New Testament, reflecting the same moral and ethical standards as tzedek. The Hebrew word tzedek primarily denotes the concept of righteousness and justice. It is used to describe the moral and ethical standards that align with God's character and law. In the Old Testament, tzedek often refers to the righteousness of God, the righteous acts of individuals, or the justice that should be evident in society. It encompasses both personal integrity and social justice. No, not the kind of social justice we see by the leftist woke element of our current culture. No, that is not at all the same kind of social justice the scriptures here, or the idea behind the word justice, holds. Social justice here is in accordance to what is upright, rightness, righteous, not the continuous slaughter of the most innocent and vulnerable among us, or perversion of said people. Emphasizing a life lived in accordance with divine standards. And there it is, of course. This is in relation, in cooperation with divine judgment. Most important. If we judge in accordance to our own fleshly desires, we will unrighteously judge in accordance to socio-political affairs. But if we judge righteously, it is in accordance to the will of God, which, of course, is the higher measurement and standard we are to follow, and therein is the wiser path forward. In ancient Israel, righteousness was not merely a personal virtue, but a communal expectation. Okay, it wasn't only found within the mind of man, it was produced outwardly in community. The concept of tzedek was integral to the covenant relationship between God and his people. Look at the many times physical Israel fell into lunacy themselves and fell into lawlessness and all sorts of chaos, and which of course resulted in deep, profound consequences of slavery, and slavery in the descriptive or negative, in the descriptive negative, and not in the simply an employee, if you will. And we'll look at what took place all the time in regards to that spiral downward that physical Israel would go would act or would participate in. God came through the prophet and spoke rebuke to the people needing to return to justice. Get rid of evil in your nation. Get rid of it. and practice justice. You can't have peace without law and justice, order. You can't. Um, and we're finding that out in real time, aren't we? It was expected that leaders, judges, and kings would rule with righteousness, ensuring justice for all. No, that's not the Metallica album there that I so like, but the idea, of course, is true. Justice for all is most important. Equality for all citizenry in a sovereign nation, especially the marginalized. The prophets frequently called Israel back to tzedek, condemning social injustices and urging a return to God's righteous ways. But this is, again, in accordance to God's standard, not the loony woke left and their corruption and toxicity. Thinking it virtuous, of course, to destroy and chaos. No, not at all. This is in accordance to preserving the well-being of humanity for the greater good of his kingdom. This is for what is just and real and true, discerning right from wrong. In a society that has lost its justice compass, you will see criminals promoted, encouraged, and preserved, while the law-abiding citizen becomes the recipient of harsh treatment and prosecution. it's it's crazy. Just in our country here, in its broken state and fallen way, if an individual or if criminals were to choose to break into my household in the middle of the night, and I were to protect my well-being and the well-being of my wife and children and parents, if I were to extinguish the threat that has broken into our property, our household, I would be the one who would be apprehended and put in jail. And the criminal would be the one praised as the innocent victim in this scenario. Of course, this happens all the time in this country. It happened just a few weeks ago where an individual had to spend over 30 days in jail for protecting his household from intrusive invasion in his household, threatening the well-being of his family. He acted upon that immediacy and self-defense and extinguished the threat, and he was apprehended by law and put in jail for that. That is what happens in a culture, in a nation that has fallen prey to lawlessness, where there is no justice. The criminal, the crime is promoted, encouraged, emboldened, and the law-abiding citizen, who is simply seeking about to be in peace, is the one who becomes the hunted. Now, of course, for you and I, as Christians, we look to a higher power for our authority upon these matters. It was interesting. I had an internet provider from a competing source come to my door a few days ago, and just a kind individual. I think his name was something like Mohammed. Surprise, surprise. But again, just a kind individual. And he wanted, of course, to sell me a internet provision, and I already have an internet provider. But we had a kind of chuckle or a quick conversation in regards to a sign I have on my property, which is a beware of dog sign. The principle is the beware of dog sign. But really what it says is there is nothing here worth your life. In other words, the beware of dog sign I have there is a warning, if you will. It's mercy from one degree. It's merciful, truly, to give that warning to any would-be criminal who would seek to intrusively enter my property to harm me and my family. I will not hesitate. I'll deal with the courts afterwards, but I will not hesitate. I will not think twice upon the immediacy or the urgency of protecting my family. And so he kind of had a chuckle at that. He said, I've read many of those signs in these rural locations. I said, yeah, we country folk are crazy, but it's the good kind of crazy. And he kind of had a laugh with that. They were kind of a chuckle with that. But he says, but we have to follow the law. And I said, absolutely. That's what we're doing. I said, we follow the governing law of men when it does not infringe upon the law of a higher power. And of course, he had his opinions about that. It's okay. And of course, a bit of insight to you. That's why, of course, corrupt, tyrannical governments want to remove us from Christianity, from the Christ, because they know if we believe in a higher power, and the higher power has written words to us telling us we can indeed protect ourselves regardless of what any corrupt power may say. I mean, that's why they want us to be removed from that, no doubt. I mean, obviously, if you play the devil's advocate, if you become the enemy and you think like an enemy, I need to de-weaponize my victims, because I need to destroy them, and I can't destroy them if they can protect themselves. So I will create policy that removes them from the ability to protect themselves. And in this country now, because of its continuous spiral downward into lunacy and corruption, I mean, you can't even speak it, truly. When I go and purchase firearms legally, I have my legal card, I legally purchase legal firearms. When I do that, it's kind of the hush-hush thing. You can't say self-defense. It's taboo. Make sure no one's listening. It's only to be for hunting and sport shooting. Well, of course, the gun community in Canada, which is vibrant and growing, most certainly has been growing in historical numbers since the communists intrusively took power in our country now for a decade. That's what happens. And these kind of elements, I share this. I'm not speaking politics, by the way. If you hear politics, that means you're not paying truly attention to the spiritual element of all of this. It's the same as in physical Israel. They were going through these moments and spiraling downwards for neglecting, rejecting the fact that they should have had faith in God more than men, and how God, the great I am, the intelligent engineer, the Ancient of Days, holds all authority and power. His authority and power is greater than the kingdoms of men and their tyrannical oppressors, their leaders, if you will, quote-unquote leaders. So, again, to the context and the practical application of this wisdom, teaching us to have justice. To have justice. Justice, when upright and according to God, makes all man equal. In other words, these corrupt politicians who have been robbing us blind, they get away with crime and murder and theft. But the innocent individual in the community gets apprehended and put in jail for hate speech because he or she dared say something against the nefarious powers now in leadership. And that is not a just system. And it never, in all of history's model, such lunacy leads to collapse every time. The greatest powers on earth have collapsed because of these things. What? No longer following the wisdom of inspired literature. Justice, instruction, discipline, upright. You can't have peace in a nation seeking freedom or sovereignty if there is no justice, if there is no law. And it's the same with individuals who have since created Christianity in their own image. They fall prey to the lunacy of the world. They don't follow the Christ of the Scriptures. And so they create a, how should I say, a sensational myth that somehow we're no longer to follow any law. And they, of course, skew and pervert the description of law and love and grace to their own ambition and sadly demise, or justly demise. So it says here, so we kind of looked at the word here, justice. Justice. That's pretty good, isn't it? Let's go back, look at the other thing. Justice, so we did instruction. The reception, of course, that is important to receive. That is free will. We have to actually embrace and receive what is being extended our way, which should be the instruction, the discipline, of wisdom, which is insight, to be wise, to have prudence. Um, if the Bible says, don't put your hand in an open flame, it will burn you, we are wise to make sure that our environment, our entourage, and our path forward is built in such a way that we will not, we will diminish the opportunity and temptation to have one put his hand or her hand in an open flame. What do I mean? Okay, let me give you this illustration. Over here on the east coast of Canada, we have snow during the wintertime. We have, at times, a great many snow blizzards and an accumulation of the white powdery stuff. No, not from Colombia, but from the skies. And it's most important that we budget our system and our culture to take care of the snow and to find a way to get rid of it in the roads and to have commerce and work and everything still function. So we pre-plan, if you will, a budget and a system of employment that takes care of the snow accumulation during wintertime. If we don't do that, we would find ourselves in a chaos and in a lock of sorts in which everyone is pretty much isolated in their homes and there is nowhere to go. You can't go to any health facility for health care or any employment to receive a paycheck at the end of the week and pay the bills. It would, again, cause great disruption. So through the prudency of our culture, having learnt the lesson, we now prepare ourselves to make sure we can take care of the snow during wintertime. So now take that illustration, if you will, and apply it to all facets of human life, right? Times are quite hard here financially, very much so. So my family and I, we make sure to have prepared ourselves with a lot of food in the freezers and things, necessary. You kind of prepare yourself, if you will, to that end. I mean, it's craziness these days to just survive. I paid my power bill. Yesterday. It was over $1,900 in 1 month. That's 1 month. It gone up quadruple, and it keeps going up. We've had other letters and emails from power providers saying, yeah, it's going to keep going up. Because apparently we're trying to fix the weather somehow, somewheres, right? Sure. So just imagine that. If you live in a location that is the recipient of delinquent policies because of corruption, the cost of life is just crazy. My wife and I, we have to be good stewards of our blessings, our support, our financial well-being. We have to. Of course, in priority, number one, we give to God the first fruits. And my wife and I are blessed to give to God $400 a week. And that's a blessing to be able to do that. And that's just in treasury. We give hundreds and hundreds of dollars throughout the week also in benevolence and hospitality, in further evangelistic endeavors. I mean, we just love to give to the church. We love to give to brethren. We love to give to God. And it's a blessing to do so. But the world and these corrupt policies and corrupt individuals, they want to take away from us, don't they? And so we pay, like 40-some% in taxes. Again, our power is close to $2,000 a month. Then you have your mortgage, which is close to $3,000 a month. Then you have groceries, which is over $2,000 a month. And then you have all of the rest of it, if you will, and it comes close to probably $10,000 a month. In something that at a time would have been maybe $2,000 a month, $3,000 tops. Why at times? And I share this because many of people have been suffering that way. Why? Because those who we have put in power as a reflection of society and its downfall and immorality and incapability of discerning right from wrong, they don't uphold justice. They don't do what's right. And so they fall prey to the isms, liberalism, fascism, Marxism, communism, socialism, all the isms. And the isms, of course, are just political titles to lawlessness, pretty much. And we become oppressed by those things. Why do we share this? Because it's a result of neglecting and rejecting the wisdom of inspired literature. That's why. That's why. I speak to people out there all the time in the community, and they now understand the pain that comes, or how, let me put it this way. To the many individuals I speak to in the community, they are quick to express how discouraged they are and how they are at their wits' end. Can't afford the bills anymore. Can't pay the rent anymore. Can't eat. Can't even afford to go to the grocery store. I'm in line at the food bank. And they see drugs legally dispersed around the community. They see drug overdose. They see crime everywhere. They see law enforcement not doing anything at all. Matter of fact, literally, a few minutes from my house is a gas station, kind of your convenience store there, and they get robbed all the time. They physically assaulted the owner when the owner tried to stop the individual from thieving. I mean, an individual went in there, stole a whole bunch of bottles of booze because it's a liquor store / gas station kind of thing, and the young individual was running with the liquor bottles in his arms outside the store, and there was a getaway vehicle there. But the owner ran after him because it's not the first time. They keep stealing from him all the time, and so the owner runs after him to stop him, and the criminal turns around with a bottle of booze and whacks him in the head with it, physically assaults him, and then gets into the getaway car and runs away. And it's all caught on camera. It's all on camera. You see the face, the license plates, and everything on camera. Guess who they blame? Guess who they blame? Guess what our news channels blame? The store owner. He should have never went after him, the criminal. Right? I go there sometimes and they're discouraged. I try to encourage them. They're discouraged. And they are, I think, immigrants from China, and they're kind people. And they speak to me and they say these criminals keep coming and stealing from us, stealing gas, stealing liquor, stealing anything, and just running. We call the police do nothing. My solution is very simple. I'm one of those old school guys cut from an old cloth of old stock Canadian. My solution is very simple. Shoot them. Shoot them. I mean, what can you do at that time? What would a higher power and the wisdom and principle of a higher power instruct us? Defend yourself. Defend your well-being. Defend your property. Shoot them. And of course, they kind of find that humorous. They never do that. They come from, of course, a culture and background that you submit to government power, no matter how corrupt the government power becomes. It doesn't matter. Even if they weld you into your apartment, literally weld you inside your apartment to starve to death because, there's a germ outside. I mean, they'll follow that path. But over here, for those of us who were born and raised with documents that honored a higher principle, a higher power, shoot them. I don't want to. You don't want to. It's not a high-handed activity. It's not like if you tell yourself, I'm going to wake up today and hopefully I'll get to shoot someone. Not at all. Far from it. It's the last thing an individual should want to experience. Really. It's the last thing I want to experience. But again, if it's forced upon you by criminals, what is your option truly? Well, many businesses shut their doors, go bankrupt. They lose their well-being. That's it. That's the result. That's it. Why? Why do these things happen? Again, I'm just sharing true and real-time current event in regards to our society and our culture, neglecting and rejecting the words we can read so clearly in inspired literature. To receive, we have to be willing to receive. We have to be willing to receive discipline. The criminal who chooses to produce a crime, to practice a crime, needs to be disciplined. We used to understand that once upon a time. We need to receive the discipline of wisdom. Prudence. I give prudency, or we share prudency to the gas station owners. Get yourself some equalizers. Get yourself some weaponry. They have the cameras. They got all the cameras set up. They got, they're going to have to start putting fences and things like that, just barricade themselves. And that's why now our grocery stores and many of the businesses in the city, they have a system in which you enter in and you have to go through, some gates and some security scanners, and there's security guards everywhere. That didn't used to be like that. We have police stations in our public schools now. Like, really? Why? Because lunacy, immorality, godlessness. We rejected the wisdom of the Christ. We rejected the wisdom of inspired literature. We reject the Proverbs. We lost the fear of God, and so we become fools. Fools. We neglect wisdom. And so we encourage and promote and provide for the criminal, the foreign barbarian, and we throw our citizens in the ditch and let them starve and die of drug overdose. And we think it virtuous somehow because we've lost our minds. This from people, of course, and this is an interesting one. Well, no, I'll save that one maybe for Friday. Let's keep going here with the instruction of the text. So we have to be the recipients of discipline, which leads, of course, to our prudency. And justice, what is upright, what is righteous, what is right in accordance to God, and judgment. And here's an important one. Let's look at judgment here. Judgment, justice, ordinance, law, decision, right. Noun masculine, mishpat. Judgment, justice, ordinance, law, decision, right. Meaning a verdict, a sentence, formal decree, divine law, penalty, justice, privilege, style. Inequality to the crime produced, no doubt. Word origin, from the root shafat, if you're an English-speaking person, shafat, meaning to judge or to govern. And you can see, just by these word studies, these very surface word studies, how our politicians and world leaders would be wise to learn the information from inspired wisdom. Lack thereof produces what we currently see in the spiral downward. So corresponding Greek, Hebrew entries, an ordinance, a judicial decision, a righteous act. This comes from God. People are like, where does law come from? Evolution? No. Evolution never produced anything whatsoever. We do not come from primordial slime or soup or slop. Nothing did not explode into something that is not science, though we've been brainwashed to think it is science. It isn't. It holds no scientific model whatsoever, no evidence to the fact. But that's, again, what needed to infiltrate the minds of the Western culture, removing us from the Christ, and now, of course, being contaminated by the lunacy of the woke culture, or what is, they describe it that way. I didn't make up the word. They describe themselves as the woke left. Well, the woke left is just some kind of political description for the fact of lawlessness. That's all that means, is lawlessness. So usage, the Hebrew word mishpat primarily refers to the act of judgment or the administration of justice. It encompasses a range of meanings, including legal decisions, ordinances, and the concept of justice itself. In the Old Testament, mishpat is often used to describe God's righteous judgments, the legal decisions of human judges, and the laws of ordinances given to Israel. It signifies a standard of rightness and fairness, reflecting God's character and his expectations for human conduct. You see how important that is? There should be millions and millions and millions of citizens wanting to tap in to the instruction of the Proverbs. most certainly our judges and lawyers and law enforcement and military and those who lead, those who protect, those who judge need to understand this information. Matter of fact, I'd have no problem solidifying a policy that says you cannot enter into the office of service as military leadership, as academic leadership, as corporation leadership, as government leadership, as entertainment leadership, in all facets of human experience in our current culture. You cannot enter in a position of influence and leadership if you do not understand and wholeheartedly accept the wisdom of Proverbs literature. If you do not know how to apply that properly in discernment, we're going to fall into chaos. And why did our nation strive and prosper for so long? Because they did follow the instructions of wisdom literature. We have to be wise. Can't be wise if the information does not, if we're not governed by the information or instruction of God's law, God's love. Just is that. So here, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity. Let's look at this word here, equity. Judgment is most important. Why is it? Let me share this one. Why is it that we would not give the same sentencing to a 13-year-old boy or girl who walks into the corner store and steals a pack of gum? Why is it that he or she, the 13-year-old who steals a pack of gum at the local store, is not given the same sentence as a mid-30s, early 40s rapist or murderer? Serial murderer or rapist. Why? Why would the judge, if he is an honorable judge in an honorable court, not going to give the same sentencing? You got it. Wisdom, insight, prudency, justice, judgment, discernment. To properly give the right kind of discipline to the right kind of crime, or wrong kind of crime, whichever perspective you speak it or describe it. Right? Right. Okay. Now you know why sometimes there is a two-tier justice system where our current corrupt leadership, I hate even calling them leadership, but is not going to face one day in jail for crimes against humanity. They've slaughtered so many people. They continue to murder people all the time. They're not going to do one day in jail. Now, there is a day coming in which the sky will open and judgment will be upon mankind, and the end of age will be upon us, and then justice indeed will be had. There will be no running around that one. But on this earth, I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. So, what we have here with this word, which was equity, mashar, uprightness, equity, fairness, level path. Most important, uprightness, equity, fairness, level path. Phonic spelling, mashar, meaning evenness, prosperity, concord, straightness, rectitude. Word origin derived from the root yasar, meaning to be straight or upright. Most important for a Christian to practice. Now, all these things, and I've been speaking them more so in the terms of our justice system and politicians, if you will, but it most certainly applies in our Christian faith, in our own home. It has to start there, in our mind, in our families. It has to, the community, the neighborhood. Meaning straightness or uprightness, often used in the New Testament to describe moral integrity and righteousness. Its usage, the Hebrew word mashar, conveys the idea of straightness or evenness, often used metaphorically to describe moral integrity, fairness, and justice. You know, I have 3 beautiful children. I have to treat them equally. I can't show favoritism upon one and push away the others. That could result in a dysfunctional home, a disorderly house, and it could cause severe consequences for our children's lives in the future if they grew up saying, well, mom and dad didn't love me, they loved my sister or my brother. It can cause bitterness and unrighteous division. It can cause all sorts of issues. So it's important to understand equality and fairness and this integrity that must be held in the household, to the community, to the state, the province, to the country, the nation. It implies a sense of righteousness. There we go. It implies a sense of righteousness and ethical conduct, aligning with God's standards. Always. Have you noticed when it comes to all these words, it's all in accordance to God's standard, not man's standard. When it comes to instruction, discipline, wisdom, insight, judgment, justice, it's in accordance to God's standard and will, His testament, His law, not ours. When we follow His standard, our well-being is more so amplified and prosperous. When we go against it, we fall prey to, well, what we are currently experiencing. Lunacy, chaos, murder, riot, devastation, sorrow, pain, all of it. In the context of paths or ways, it suggests a level of smooth path, free from obstacles, symbolizing a life lived in accordance with divine principles. Cultural and historical background to this word here. In ancient Israelite society, the concept of mashar was integral to the community's understanding of justice and righteousness. The Israelites were called to live in a manner that reflected God's character, which included fairness and equity in their dealings with one another. This was particularly important in a covenant community where social justice and moral integrity were seen as expressions of faithfulness to God. To do so is to be right with God. To receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and integrity is indeed pleasing to God. It's beneficial to society for the greater good of His kingdom, and it permits societal conduct and fellowship to thrive and prosper. When we neglect and reject these instructions, we have what we have now, which is a mess, which is a defunct corporate bankruptcy of a nation, just waiting to be purchased by whoever. I'd prefer being purchased by the American power rather than the Russian or Indian or Chinese powers that are in our Atlantic shores just waiting to, apprehend us for the slaughter. I'd much rather submit to the American policy myself, but, TV keeps telling me the Americans are the bad guys. But for some of us, we're awake to what's going on, no doubt. Now, that's from that perspective, but also from the home front and spiritual perspective, my dear friends. We must understand what sin does in our life. It destroys us. But it won't destroy us if we seek to receive instruction. Through the free will thinking mind, we receive what is being extended from God, which is discipline, guidance, instruction in wisdom, insight, prudency. The behavior we ought to have is called at a higher standard, to live rightly, to practice justice and integrity, to be fair and equal to all men, neighbors, justice, to discern right from wrong. And so that moves us to our second verse here for study. To give prudence to the naive, to the youth knowledge and discretion. So we've kind of looked at these words, and these words in almost synonymous manner have a bit of a different descriptive tone. For instance, if you seek to understand what I mean, the church that Christ purchased with His blood, right? It is descriptively known in the Bible as the church, His church. It's also called the body. It's also called an assembly, a congregation. It's also called a kingdom. Now, all of them are synonymous to the same spiritual refuge, the location of the Christ, right? And all who have called upon His name as repentant believers, qualifying to be immersed into His body, enter into a spiritual location, the kingdom of the Christ, a spiritual house never to be destroyed by the hands of men. Okay, so each of these descriptors, if you will, body, church, congregation, kingdom, they all speak of the same location, but they do so from a different description, if you will. Some of them mean family. Some of them mean security and judgment. Some of them mean connection and neighborly connections, things like that. So you'll see a lot of that in the literature of this wisdom insight to give prudence to the naive. Well, prudence is wisdom, no doubt. It's to be wise, to be ready, to be prepared, to be aware of your surroundings and be prepared for them. To the naive, to the simple mind, I, as a parent, must give prudence to my children. They are innocent. They are naive. They go out there and talk to people, and they're out there in the community, and they could not discern a malicious heart like mom and dad can. We're like, oh, we know what kind of person that is. We better keep that person far away from our children. Or you can see it in the countenance of their faces, in the maneuvers of their behavior, their facial expressions, or the actions, upright, or words they speak, revealing who they are, if you will. Some of them more covert, taking a bit more insight and prudency and discernment to recognize the wolf in sheep's clothing, if you will. Well, we must deliver that education to our children. Okay? Be mindful of these sorts. The Bible, Christ teaches us all the time in the New Testament to be mindful of these wolves in sheep's clothing. And brethren are so naive and lacking the wisdom of the scriptures that they think denominational preachers are somehow wolves in sheep's clothing. They aren't. The Roman Catholic Pope is not a wolf in sheep's clothing. He is exactly what he says he is, the Roman Catholic Pope. He doesn't have to put on sheep's clothing. He's telling you, I'm the wolf. All right? Denominational leaderships, the pastors or priests or cardinals or popes or reverends or whatever, they'll tell you, I am the wolf. I'm not putting on any sheep's clothing. No, it gets a bit closer to home when it comes to that instruction Christ revealed to us. These sorts can teach the Bible. They can teach it very well. They are scholarly. But within their hearts is great maliciousness, all kinds of evil. We have to teach our children who are naive to that. Or brethren who are naive to that. Well, I don't have a problem with that, brother. He can teach the Bible very well. Yeah, but have you seen his resume? Have you seen the history of destruction and chaos he brings to every local assembly? I mean, you can be only ignorant for so long here. Well, the children are the same. As parents, we have to teach them. Some people, they may portray themselves as being right, but they are wrong. Give prudent to the simple. To the youth, knowledge and discretion. Discretion. Let's look at the word discretion here. If we go back to, here, this is 3. Let's go look at 4. Proverbs 1:4. And that'll kind of conclude our session here. We're rolling up to the hour. To give to the simple prudence, to the young man knowledge and discretion. Discretion. What was the other word here? Discretion. Yeah, that's the word we're looking for. What does it say for discretion? What's the descriptive nature of discretion in the Hebrew dialect? Discretion, plan, purpose, device, wickedness. Noun, feminine this time. Oh, this one's different. Phonetic spelling. Mezimma. Definition, discretion, plan, purpose, device, wickedness. Meaning, a plan, evil, sometimes good. Word origin, derived from the root zamam, which means to plan or to devise. Now here, within the context, of course, we believe positive, something good, not necessarily in the negative, which some utilize. Again, and this is how we opened up our session. Some will utilize this wisdom for their nefarious, sinister ploy or plot or agenda, ambition. They do. They are diatrophic in their ways, pharisaical in their ways, and quite cunning. But you and I, we want to utilize it for what is positive and good, for the greater good of his kingdom. Thought, purpose, intention, that the corresponding Greek Hebrew entries here. Device, contravance. So the usage, the Hebrew word mezimma, can have both positive and negative connotations depending on the context. Yep, there it is again. Positively, it refers to prudence, discretion, or thoughtful planning. And that, I think, is where we find the context. Thoughtful planning. Now, negatively, it can denote wicked schemes or evil plans, which, of course, diatrophic spirits and pharisaical kinds who creep into local assemblies causing chaos will utilize. That's why it can be difficult or challenging to discern for some brethren, because they see the tool being utilized. Let me give you this one. This is a gem for you. They see the tool being operated, and they only focus on the tool's operation, but they don't see the individual who is utilizing the tool and the motive behind the individual utilizing the tool. I can pick up a wrench, and you'd say, oh, a wrench is a good tool. That can help you fix your certain mechanical portions of your vehicle, right? It can help you in construction. It can help you in all. That's a good tool. Yeah, but you're missing the mark, if you will. You're not looking at the individual who utilizes it. A Christian can stand, an individual can stand in a church with a Bible. Don't make him saved. Don't make him a good person in of itself as a person who stands in the church with a Bible. Diotrephes knows how to have a Bible and teach a Bible. That don't make him right with God. That don't mean he's not sinning against God and God's church and his fellow man. And so we have to teach this to our children, this insight, this wisdom. Wicked schemes, evil plans. It can be in the negative. It can denote wicked schemes or evil plans, but it's the same tool. Again, what about this one? What about this one? This one's easy. A firearm. The firearm in of itself isn't going to grow some legs and hurt people. It just isn't. It never has been. Of course, in the culture of lunacy, according to the lawlessness of the woke left, apparently the firearm grows legs and hurts people. And what's so strange with this one is that it only seems to happen to law-abiding citizens. The criminals, their firearms, I guess they're not a problem at all in society. See what happens when you don't follow the instruction of the Proverbs? That's what happens. Well, the firearm, in reason, in logic, in reality, is just a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool that does nothing until a human being picks it up and does something with it. Now, there it is. Now, you'd have some brethren saying, well, there's nothing wrong with that tool. That brother, he has a tool. Yeah, but he's going to slaughter people with it. Well, I haven't seen such things. That's because you're blind. That's because you're blind. So we have to utilize the tool in its positive sense. Positive sense. Positively, it refers to prudence, discretion, or thoughtful planning. Okay? We can utilize this to prosper in society. We can. Or we can use it to betray, to take advantage, to manipulate, to deceive. Again, to practice the diatrophic or pharisaical kind. We don't want to do that. We got enough of that nonsense going on. We want to use it in the positive sense. In the positive sense, okay? So that's quite interesting to me in regards to the word discretion. Discretion. Discretion in the positive. Prudence, discretion, or thoughtful planning. Intention. Intention. Thought. Purpose. Planning. Planning. That looks kind of good. To the youth, knowledge, an educated mind, and planning. Plan for one's future, not only on this earth, but also unto the one in the eternal realm. To give prudence to the naive, right? To the youth, knowledge and discretion. So that has been our study session for today. Proverbs chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. To receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and integrity. To give prudence to the naive, to the youth, knowledge and discretion. Knowledge and discretion. That indeed will help them not only in career, employment, or employer, it will help them in their relationships, whom they will marry one day, how they behave towards mother and father, grandparents, siblings, cousins, aunts, and uncles, how they behave with individuals in society, neighbors, community, all of it. How to side with what is upright, what is decent, what is good, instead of what is evil. The Proverbs should be a mandatory educational class in public schools, Well, there's another one. Why don't we have God in any of our public services now? Well, if we would once again set forth the instructions of the scriptures, the wisdom of the scriptures in government, in corporation, in academia, in media, social, entertainment, all its facets, if we utilize the wisdom of it, we will prosper and God will bless us. It's been the same pattern time and time again in history. But when we neglect and reject, we spiral downwards all the way down into full chaos and slaughter, disorder and bondage, slavery, to the leading tyrant of the day or the age. Well, some of us are going to fight till the end against that kind of lunacy. And the best way to do that is to know who Jesus is. Not the Jesus of the world out there, but the Jesus of the Bible. Read the 27 books of the New Testament Bible. Begin with the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Read them and read them again. Get rid of all distractions. Turn off the phone. Find yourself in a meditative state where you read the words slowly. And you read them and you read them. And don't formulate your own interpretation upon your own desires. Let the Bible itself tell you what it's saying. The book is alive. It's God-breathed. It is alive. And if you permit it to enter your mind, your heart, you'll see what I see. You'll see what all of us have been seeing who have been honestly reading that book. It'll open your mind. It truly will. It will set you free. It's a shocking moment. I still remember all the various moments of my awakening. It's a shocking moment because you're like, man, I thought that was right. It was wrong all along. I remember when I opened my eyes to abortion and the LGBTQ community and fornication, adultery, and everything along the lines of sexual immorality and the world of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and the world of corrupt political arenas, and the world of, everything started to make sense to me the more I read the Bible, because it was making us wise. Why do you think they want to get rid of the Bible for? Why do you think they wanted to remove us from Christianity for? Because it made us smarter than them, the enemy. That's why. We pray for them. We love them. But the Bible tells us not to permit them to be emboldened and to contaminate everyone. The more you read the New Testament Bible, the more you'll want to know where it comes from. You start reading the Old Testament. Starting to make sense now. Everything's starting to make sense on what's happening. Again, speaking to people in the community, finishing my thought that I began about an hour ago now, I suppose, or a half hour ago. Speaking to people in the community, they are acute to seeing everything around them. But they can't connect the dots as to why it's happening. Here's what they do, literally, to the people I speak to in the community, which are kind people, decent people, who are devastated. They can't pay the bills. They're in line at the food bank. They see people dying all around them in the community of drug overdose and criminal activity, and the police aren't doing nothing or close to nothing. And I think it's because they can't, because the law says they can't. And they should be independently thinking, well, we're not going to follow the law that says we can't enforce the law. I mean, again, that's a whole department of conversation there. I'm just doing my job. Oh, okay. Well, maybe the job you've been told to do is wrong, and you should stand up against that. But anyways, so the law enforcement isn't doing what they should be doing, which is putting criminals in jail, getting rid of crime in society. And they see all of this, and they become the recipients of all this devastation and chaos and riot and death and just desperation. And then they look at you right in the eyes after they speak it, and you agree with them. You're like, I know, these things are happening in our society. Lack of justice, lack of discernment, wisdom, insight, lack of instruction and discipline. All of that. I know, I see the results. I agree with you, because you want to give them a comfort, knowing that, okay, I'm not alone here. You're seeing it too, right? Yeah. And here's what they say. Immediately to them, this is what they say, because, well, this is what our government's told us, and government propaganda channels have told us. They immediately go to describing sometimes an hour conversation describing all the wickedness and evil around them and what's happening. And then they go and say, it's all Trump's fault. It's all Trump's fault. Trump's fault. Was it Trump's fault 400 years ago when this was happening? Well, was it Trump's fault 1,000 years ago when this was happening? You sure it's Trump's fault? Who told you it was Trump's fault? The TV. The government told us. Been telling us for, well, how many years now? 10 years for sure. It's crazy. It really is. It's so delusional and disconnected. But I don't get angry at them. I know why that's how they think, because it's what TV told them. And they're only allowed to listen to TV that is corrupt government propaganda. That's it. Okay, let me give you this one. Joe Biden. They want to put a statue up of Joe Biden. He's the greatest president America's ever had. Joe Biden's the greatest president America's ever had. They want to put a statue of him. Someone says, you're crazy. What are you, nuts? He's the worst president, or among the worst presidents we've ever had. I'd be like, well, I've never seen such a thing on CNN. CNN never told me he was the worst president. CNN keeps telling me he's the best thing on earth. He's the best president America's ever had. They should make a statue of him in honor of him. Dude, turn off CNN. Like, they're lying to you. Oh, I've never seen that in there. It's the same sometimes with some brethren, too. It literally is like, are you aware that this brother is a problem in the church? Like, he's a lying, slanderous, pharisaical, self-righteous brute, a divisive producer of chaos and pain and sorrow. He's a liar. Well, I've never seen such things on his social media platforms or on his podcast. I've never seen anything like that there. Okay, then Joe Biden is the best president America's ever had because CNN says so, and I listen to CNN. If you're listening to a wolf in sheep's clothing on his platform, yeah, you're going to think he's, a sound gospel preacher, a successful individual. Well, so will you if you listen to CNN in regards to Joe Biden or Obama or Clinton. But are they? In actuality, in reality, with the science and the history and the numbers, like facts, objective absolutes, are they? Well, they're the farthest thing from it. They're quite to the opposite. Well, it's how we discern right from wrong also with wolves in sheep's clothing. You may go to his station and hear about his success and how wonderful everything is. But if you take a step back and look at the evidence and the facts, he's done nothing but cause chaos. He's a professional liar and slanderer with devoured loyalist, henchmen. Well, I've never seen anything like that from them. This all goes back to the Proverbs we were looking at. Really, it does. It does. This is not some kind of a disconnected excursion. This all goes back to the scripture. To know wisdom and instruction, to discern the sayings of understanding, to receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the naive, to the youth knowledge and discretion. All the word studies we made, all the descriptors, all in the practical application, it has to do with these moments. Being able to discern the difference between, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau. That's in that sphere. More important than that is being able to discern right from wrong in regards to, the local assembly. Brethren. Wolves in sheep's clothing. The difference between Diotrephes and Demetrius. Wisdom. It does. Well, that will finish our session for this hour. It's such a pleasure to have you with us as always. Please consider to subscribe, like, share, follow, drop a comment, engage with the material. Others out there might find utility in it, and it's a blessing to do so. Friends, stay focused and stay positive. You are certainly appreciated, and you are loved. Lord willing, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Atlantic Daylight Time, we will have our Topical Thursday. Lord willing, next week, we shall finish our study portion in midweek for the Proverbs with verses, we did 1 and 2, we did 3 and 4, we'll do 5, 6, and 7, or we'll see if we can get there. We want to take our time with this. We want to make sure we learn. You go by too quickly. Some miss the mark with that. They can quote 500 scripture verses in a half an hour, 45 minutes, but you haven't learned anything, really. I'd rather take one verse, open it up for an hour, and really learn from it. What does it mean? What did God want us to learn about this? How does this apply to our lives? Well, let's take the time with it. That's what we did. That's what we do. Share it. Maybe others out there would want to learn. 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, Atlantic Daylight Time, we'll have ourselves a topical discussion. Sound good? God bless, my beautiful friends.